Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast and media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Math Machine, and Angron, Stryker, and LuckyEevee. Today is our 30th episode, and we're discussing 2016's My Little Pony Friendship is Magic episode, Gauntlet of Fire. So, let's get things started.
Yeah.
So, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic was a gigantic phenomenon back in the 2010s. If you were on the internet at that time, you probably saw a pony somewhere, even if you were like just exclusively posting on even places like, the deepest, most obscure forums on the internet, you probably saw a pony at some time. Now, I don't know about you guys, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit, but I personally have been there kind of since the beginning. I mean, I wasn't really into the fandom until 2012, but I watched the show in 2011, and I think what I've become, I feel like one of those really old hippies that used to be at Woodstock. You weren't there, man. You don't know what it was like when you saw, Candace turn into Queen Chrysalis. You weren't there, man. It really does feel like, yeah.
Oh, man. Honestly, I think there's an episode from season 2 that pretty much is almost every Brony's backstory. No joke.
Yeah.
They kind of get curious. They take a look at it, and they're like...
Yeah, the one where our Rainbow Dash learns about reading. That was a fun one.
Yep, reading Rainbow.
Classic. Yep. And personally, my favorite ponies are Pinkie Pie, Rarity, and Celestia. And again, we'll talk more about that later. But this episode is one from season 6, which is still a really good season in my eyes. I feel like what happened, a lot of the fandom was getting a little stagnant at this point, unfortunately, because I think the hiatuses hadn't done it a lot of favors in the past. But it still is a good season, and this is a very, very good episode, in my opinion. So the episode cold open begins with Spike and Rarity hunting for gems. And Spike and Rarity always had a really fun relationship, and I enjoyed what they did with it as time went on. They actually built more on it with character development, and that's one thing you'll see a lot about, especially in Friendship is Magic, that they actually took the time to have characters grow and evolve over time, at least until some episodes of the last season, but that's neither here nor there. So Spike starts to glow, which attracts the bats in the cave, and this is actually the shortest cold opening of the show I have ever seen because it just stops right here and it cuts right to the title sequence. And
bat. Oh man, it reminds me of the bat. It reminds me of the bats from Bats. The one where
Oh, that was a good one. Yeah, that had a good song on it too.
That was hilarious.
Yeah, season 4, I believe. But it starts, of course, with the iconic My Little Pony Friendship is Magic theme song, which I will never skip, thank you very much, because it is iconic and it slaps.
It's iconic, yes, but it occasionally gets to a point where it's iffy sometimes. I will admit it's definitely a lot better than other themes, but yeah.
Yeah, the extended version can be a little bit too long, but I feel like this version it goes at a good clip. And
I did not know there was an extended version.
There is, and I feel like it goes on for a little too long. Maybe that's why I like this version a little bit better. But so the episode proper. Yep. Sorry.
No, continue.
Oh, that's all right. That's okay. Oh so the episode proper begins at Twilight's Crystal Palace. And the Crystal Palace basically replaced the Golden Oak Library in Season 4 when Lord Tyrek destroyed it. And,
Tyrek destroyed it.
Yeah. And you know why this was done, which was, of course, to sell toys, which apparently the writers were not too happy to have to do that just to sell toys. They actually intended for Celestia and Luna's old castle in the woods to be Twilight's castle, but... unfortunately, Hasbro was like, no, we need to sell toys, proving that Hasbro had learned nothing. Yeah. It proves that Hasbro sadly has learned absolutely nothing from the Transformers movie when they killed off Optimus Prime and a billion children instantly were traumatized forever just so they could sell toys. They have not learned a thing, unfortunately.
Okay, this one I feel is a little less impactful than that one. Which honestly,
no, I'm not comparing it.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I'm not comparing that at all. It's all good. Sorry about that. So yeah. Anyway, Celestia and Luna are in the castle, which it's always a good when they appear in episodes because, again, Celestia is one of my favorite ponies, and I feel like she never really got the time to shine as much as she did. She got a couple of good episodes later on in the show.
Oh yeah,
for the most part, it felt like
the road trip with Luna.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
But that gave them more character.
I feel like for the most part, she was kind of. I don't know if they really knew what to do with her, but even seeing her in a more casual setting like this is a good one. And there's a pretty good joke where Celestia and Luna just say that they're here to relax, and Rarity just bursts in wanting help again. And I feel like the juxtaposition of that's a good one. And it turns out that Spike's glowing is a call from the Dragon Lord. And yep, Dragon Society in Friendship is Magic is very, very unique because in the first season, most dragons were shown to be basically loners in that. They didn't even really have a society. They basically lived in caves and did whatever they wanted to. In the second season, we get the episode Dragon Quest, where they're mostly shown to be kind of selfish and arrogant and whatnot, which you do get to see some, kind of like that. And I'm really happy with this episode. They took a more nuisance look at them rather than have it be nuanced. Thank you. But they took a more nuanced look at them compared to like this version, where the older version, where they were like, oh, the dragons are big and mean, but the ponies are small and nice. I feel like if this was like an 80s show, they would have just done that and stuck with it, compared to this, where they actually allow the characters to have a little bit more depth. And I really like that they do that. So yeah, Garble was from that episode, and he was the main antagonist of that one as well. And I do like the other gag with Twilight, of course, geeking out over going to the Dragonlands to study all about their culture, and then everyone else just stares at her like, "What are you doing?" is another good one.
The fuck, Twilight.
Exactly.
That is the little tasteless Twi. Tasteless Twi. Ooh, tasteless Twi.
good one. Tasteless Twi. Sounds good. But yeah, Rarity's mention of the dragon costume is funny because in the episode Dragon Quest, they dress up as a dragon, and it is like the worst dragon costume ever. And yet one of the dragons in the Dragonlands just happens to look exactly like that costume. That's one of those gags that's just so
hilarious.
Perfect. Yeah. It has the exact same like goofy expression on its face and everything. Crackle.
Female. I could be wrong.
I don't know. I will have to look that up. But yeah, their current costume is when they're in the Dragonlands, Rarity and Twilight. They're just a rock with eye holes in it, and none of the other dragons notice that there's a rock with like 2 eye holes in it. Just right there. And yeah, Garble in Dragon Quest and in this episode, he's kind of a stereotypical, I guess, bully type. Teenage bully and whatnot. He does get a lot more depth later on in another episode with Ember. And again, I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they took these characters that could have been one-off, one-note characters and decided, no, let's actually take some time to develop them and properly go through character arcs. Which, again, I feel is what separates Friendship is Magic from a lot of the previous generations of the show.
To bring the boys from the men.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, Dragon Lord, we get to see the Dragon Lord Torch, and he's awesome. I love the fact that he has more predominant facial features than all the other dragons. He's like 10 times larger than all of them, and again, for a Flash animated show, because Friendship is Magic was animated entirely in Flash, it looks really, really good. Like, part of me, wonders, what if they had traditional animation? But it still is probably one of the better shows that does like exclusively Flash animation that I've seen. In the crowd shot, we actually get to see 2 dragonesses. The purple one, who is more in the foreground of the shot, is named Mar, and she actually has a dialogue later on, which we'll talk about. Yes. She's voiced by Nicole Oliver, aka Princess Celestia, who has also done a bunch of other voices as part of the Ocean Group. If you've seen a show that had voice acting done in Canada, for the most part, she was probably on that show at one time.
Yeah, not to mention Zubea from Dragon Prince,
Yeah,
which will
and we
be
are
covered later.
Yeah. So that's funny. That means there's gonna be 2 Dragonesses voiced by Nicole Oliver that we're gonna discuss on the show. That'll be a lot of fun when we get to her too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's almost
Exactly.
unrecognizable as Mar, which is
it really shows how good of a voice actress she is, that she's able to actually disguise her voice like that. It doesn't sound like Celestia at all. I had to actually look at the credits to see who voiced the character, and I was like, whoa, that's interesting. We also get to see another Dragoness. She's kind of in the background. She's a little hard to spot. She has pink coloring. She has a tail that's long enough that she could sit on, which another cute touch. And her name is Ballista. She has a unique snout, but a similar body shape to that of Ember. And basically, the dragons' designs in general are really well done, because I feel like, with the ponies, you had kind of a template for them. Granted, you can go all out with the colors, with the designs, with the accessories, but you still have a base template. For the dragons, I feel like they had a lot of fun coming up with unique ways to make them look different. To all give them, a little bit of a tweak from each other that all make them really fun to watch. That's why episodes in the Dragonlands are really unique. I feel like they are probably some of the better episodes of the show. Not saying that all the show is bad, because a lot of it is really, really good, but some of the ones in the Dragonlands are a lot of fun. And speaking of which, this generation is the first and is so far the only one to have Dragonesses in it. Because, of course, there's these Dragonesses, but, of course, Ember also shows up, and she instantly became a fan favorite character because, of course, Dragoness and with the Brony fandom was kindling on a fire, basically. It went on for a hitch. Yeah. And what happened is that originally Lauren Faust did a drawing of a Dragoness that was supposed to appear in season 1, and she resembled kind of a larger, more mature version of Ember. They had Twilight Sparkle in the drawing, looking up at this Dragoness in awe, and really wonder how she would have been in the show, but never got used. There was going to be an episode in season 3 that had Fluttershy transform into a Dragoness, which would have been very interesting to see her design like that.
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, we did not get that because season 3 was cut short because they thought the show was going to end. Hence why they gave Twilight wings at the end of season 3. Because I remember reading the writers said if they had known about it, they would have waited way later to do that. But they thought that this was going to be the end of the show, so they did that. So now we actually have a show where Twilight is an alicorn for way longer than she was a unicorn. She was a unicorn for 3.5 seasons, and she's an alicorn for 4 seasons.
Everything else.
Yeah, 4 seasons.
5 or 6 at most.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we do have, again, in G1, I don't think there were any other dragons other than Spike. Same thing with G3. And in G5, they say all of the other dragons are sleeping, so we don't know if there's any Dragonesses. We can presume so, but until then, it's unlikely. So yeah, that's why Friendship is Magic is probably the best generation of My Little Pony. It is the most amount of Dragonesses in it. Yeah, Torch, according to Dragon Law, has to step down, meaning that the dragons basically have to do a competition to see who the new Dragon Lord will be. And there's a really funny joke about Torch forcing all the other dragons and dragonesses to be sad over his retirement, like screaming at them. Exactly. It's so funny because it just comes after a big noble speech, and how they instantly turn, like openly weeping about him leaving is a good one. So yeah, the dragons basically, their task is to fetch his scepter from the inside of an active volcano. Now, Twilight is all for this because she wants to learn all about the dragon culture and whatnot, while Spike realizes that he's out of this and he just wants to leave. He starts pushing the stone away with him, which again, is just the cheap costume with Twilight and Rarity in it. And all the other dragons and dragonesses, Torch included, notice this because of course they would. And now we get to hear Ember's voice, and I feel like her voice, it works really, really well for the character. Apparently her voice actress is actually more of a musician in Canada. She's done voice acting, including, of course, Ember, but apparently her day job is more of a musician, and she has a really natural voice for the character. It works so well with the design, I feel. Yep. So anyway, Ember attempts to get Spike to leave, realizing that he probably couldn't take part in it, which of course he's thankful for. And several of the other dragons, Mar included, which is where we get her line of dialogue, get ideas for what they should do when they become Dragon Lord. Some of them Mar wants apparently all dragons to greet by belching, which, okay, that's interesting. You have one of them wants to steal all the ponies' pillows for their backs, which is again a funny one. But then Garble wants to become Dragon Lord, and he's going to apparently raise Equestria if he becomes Dragon Lord, which is why Spike basically has to take part in it now to ensure that Garble doesn't win. One thing that is interesting is how Spike said, oh, if any of the other dragons, win, it'll be bad for Equestria. But it's like, if Mar wins, yeah, it's disgusting, but she's not actively going to raise their homes or anything. Yeah, it's definitely... Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Spike then realizes if he wins, he can never return home because the Dragon Lord has to stay in the Dragonlands. So the first task is for the dragons to fly to the volcano, but Spike doesn't have wings yet. He gets them later on in the series, but for now, no wings. So yeah, he ends up falling in the water by Garble, and he swims his way with Twilight and Rarity cheering him on, covered in seaweed, with, again, their eye holes just peeking out. And, again, none of the other dragons and dragonesses notice this, which is another good joke. And then we get to see a green scale dragon in a suit of armor is knocked into the water by one of the other competitors. Spike saves the dragon and brings it to land, only for it to be revealed that the mystery dragon turns out to be Princess Ember all along. Despite what, Torch says, she wants to compete in the competition to prove that dragons don't just have to be, big and powerful, but they can also be smart, which, again, really good character development. It takes what people think, from, the last season, how the dragons were, from, the episode Dragon Quest, and it gives them a lot more development. It really finds a way to take, a concept that most people would think, all dragons are, big, stupid brutes, and it turns it on its head, which, is something I really, really like about Friendship is Magic. They did a fantastic job with that. So, yeah, Rarity, of course, gives herself away in a funny way, and Spike has to admit that ponies are his friends. Ember is confused by this, claiming that, dragons don't do friends, and she has to basically win the gauntlet to prove to the others, including her father, which, again, as I said earlier, really, really good touch. So yeah, Garble is then crushed by a stone, but Spike saves him, and I love this little part. Garble is annoyed. He's pissed that Spike took the time to save him from being crushed by a giant boulder. It's why'd you do that? It really is something it showcases how most of the dragons naturally act in that. Which, again, is good. And, of course, Garble sniffs out the ponies, but Ember protects them by saying that she robbed some ponies earlier. And then I love how Spike protects Ember from being discovered by saying that she was his old neighbor and whatnot. And it actually reminds me of, from Family Guy, what's your name? My name? Peter Griffin. Yeah, I'm Peter Griffin. Oh, crap. That's what Spike's explanation reminded me of.
Nice.
Yeah. And So, interesting sound effect use. The Wilhelm scream, which is famous from Star Wars, Indiana Jones, a lot of other movies. It's heard when some of the other dragons get hit by the boulders, which is a nice touch. And Spike and Ember decide to work together despite Rarity not feeling good about the idea. And this leads to another good gag. Spike turns to talk to Rarity, but they are not there in the seaweed. And it turns out they're just hiding in a tree trunk right next to him, which another good one. It's unexpected. You think that they'd be hiding in it, but they're really right in the opposite direction. And like I say, Friendship is Magic, it wasn't really the funniest show, to be honest, but when it was funny, it was funny.
When it was clever, it was clever.
Moments.
All things
considered.
It had
a lot of good moments in it. So yeah, Spike basically rides on Ember's back as they maneuver their way. They maneuver their way through the molders and whatnot. Which it actually does remind me a little bit of How to Train Your Dragon. Some of the shots in this, which makes me wonder if they took inspiration from that movie for this. Mostly from the first one, I feel. with the point of view shot and whatnot.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I definitely feel like they definitely took some idea with it. So of course, Spike and Ember make it to the mouth of the cavern as fire shoots out from it and knocks out some more competitors. And I love that Rarity and Twilight are just randomly up in the mouth of the cavern in their tree disguise. Like they just happen to show up, with no explanation as to how they got there. Again, you can infer that they teleported off screen and whatnot, but I think it's funnier if you don't realize that. If you think like, wait, how did they get there? They were all the way on the other side of the cliff. I don't. Yeah, it feels like something that definitely could have been. It would have been funnier. I feel it was like Earth ponies, like Applejack and Pinky, believe it or not. But it's still a good joke, regardless. So yeah, Ember admits that Spike has helped her out and decides to keep working with him. And the cavern, I do like what they do here with all the little trash, like the stalagmites and the rubies smashing against the walls and whatnot. It does remind me a little bit of the episode with a Daring Do. A little bit, but then again, you could say that just about like any, temple and any movie and whatnot. So it probably wasn't too much of a coincidence. So yeah, Garble gets hit by a ruby, which makes an indent in the mountain. And when I actually saw it, the first thing I thought of, no joke, was this is my hole. It was made for me.
Oh God!
That's what I thought of. Oh God!
Oh God! I have a Junji Ito poster that I got from Comic-Con. I didn't really want it, but I took it out of charity. But oh man!
Yeah.
That just reminded me of that. Oh my gosh!
Yeah. But when I saw it, that's like the first thing I thought of, and then I thought to myself, wait, why am I thinking that? What's wrong with me? But yeah, Rarity and Spike make it to the Lavern Cavern with Rarity and Twilight there again, and Ember actually points out, like, wait, how did you get here? Which, again, another funny joke, another funny, callback with it. So Rarity almost falls off the cliff, but Spike saves her, and this causes Ember to just be really confused about it. Why did he risk his life to save hers, and why is Rarity and Twilight going through all this trouble to support Spike? It really makes her consider, like, the ideas of friendship and whatnot. She considers it for a brief moment, but then she basically abandons Spike to get the scepter, owing to her, her dragoness nature. She feels like she can't change, which, again, good character development, especially for her first appearance. Definitely with that.
Certainly interesting.
Yeah.
Preserved, but not in a way that, like, makes it so that she's absolutely racist.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, but Rarity claims that Ember is just like all the other dragons, which, wow, okay, Rarity, that's all prejudice right there.
Ouch,
but
bitch.
Spike denies this, as she did try to save him as well. So Spike eventually finds a scepter room, is about to grab it, only to be confronted by Garble. And basically what happens is Garble threatens to throw Spike off the cliff, but Ember saves him, because now Ember finally realizes what friendship is all about, which of course friendship is magic. It's in the title, folks. But but yeah, it is, again, something that feels natural. It doesn't feel like it's a forced epiphany or anything,
Yeah, that's certainly.
It feels like it was really, really almost earned in a way.
Yeah, it was earned. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
And also Spike temporarily becoming the Dragon Lord and like telling Garble, you go fucking hug everyone.
Exactly. So, we'll talk about that in just a second. But basically before that, Garble discovers Rarity and Twilight and slowly corners them. But then Ember just slams into Garble and they fight. And then Spike is conflicted whether he should get the scepter or save Ember. But then he chooses the latter, because then he just tackles Garble, which, again, was really surprising. But again, Garble knocks him off the cliff and fights Ember. And Garble's just sickened that dragons are helping each other. Yeah. And then, of course, Ember literally tosses him aside. And she realizes that, friendship is better than just, being greedy and selfish and whatnot. Which, again, is something that it's good for the dragons to learn and whatnot. Oh, so then Spike grabs the scepter, and now he's officially the Dragon Lord. And now he forces Garble to basically go home. But before he does that, he has to hug literally every single dragon he sees. And the first dragon he does this to, when he like storms off sulking, the dragon looks with like a gigantic grin on his face, which was hilarious. It was like, it's just like the grin on that dragon's face after he got the hug. It was like, oh, wow. But yeah, then Spike realizes that, his home is in Equestria, so he passes the scepter off to Ember, which causes her to become the Dragon Lord. And of course,
or Dragon Lady in this case.
Yep. Of course, they don't change the title. I think she is officially still called Dragon Lord Ember, but that is a good point.
Labels.
Spike hugs Ember, causing her to be, shocked and whatnot.
Still getting used to friendship.
Yep. Still learning about it. So yeah, Torch, when he finds out about this, he is absolutely pissed at Ember having the scepter. But then he realizes that, she got it fair and square. She deserves to be the leader. And Garble also hugs Torch's snout because Torch is just so massive. He can't, he can't give him like a normal hug. He has to like hug his snout. Is another really funny joke. And then while he looks up like pleadingly at Torch, it really, really works out well. So exactly.
What are you doing?
Exactly.
I won't tell you.
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, Twilight then notes out that Ember is going to help her out with the dragon culture, which comes into play later on, which I do like that they did follow up on it. There were some things that kind of dropped out as the show went on, like the fact that, Fluttershy technically is still a, vampire bat and whatnot that they didn't leave out. So I'm glad that they did follow this up and they did more with Ember later on. She would appear in several other episodes in the upcoming seasons, and for the most part, she has a pretty good run. She has a pretty good run of episodes, in my opinion. I feel like she could have been used a little bit more. I feel like there was ways you could have had her in like, not in like every episode, like shoehorning her in, like what they had to do with Twilight at the beginning of the show. But I feel like there's ways that you could have had her in a little bit more episodes, and you could have had it done a lot more naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could definitely be interesting.
Yep. So, okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
All right, that's good. So yeah, now it is time for the questions of the week, which is, what is your experience with Friendship is Magic / the Brony fandom in general? And I'll go first, and right now it is story time. Here is how a Brony meetup in Rotterdam gave me a fear of heights.
Oh boy.
This is going to be an interesting one, so get ready.
Hop on in.
So yeah, basically what happened is in around 2014, which God is 9 years ago. Where does the time go? So yeah, in 2014, I went to Rotterdam to a Brony meetup with a bunch of friends from a My Little Pony forum I was on at the time. So yeah, we toured Rotterdam, which is really cool. Saw the canal, saw some statues. Didn't get to see the dinosaur museum, but it was okay. It was a really cool idea. But then what happened is that we went up to this basically viewing observation tower. We went up to like the second level of the tower. To go up to the top level of the tower, you had to pay like 10, 15 euros. I didn't want to do that because I only really had money for dinner for myself that night. I wasn't about to spend it, so I basically told the others, it's okay, I'll head out, I'll meet you guys. I go out like the first door I see. Now, I am on the side of the tower. I am on this platform that is as big as my shoes. And this is on like a side of the tower where there are like no people there. So, I'm sure, nobody saw this. And if anyone did see this, they probably wonder what the hell I was doing. I had to basically shimmy my way on this platform, which again were the size of my shoes. I had to like shimmy along, slowly inch my way towards the stairwell, which I took to like the first level, and then I took it to the ground. I should also mention that day was an extremely windy day. So here I am on the side of this tower in Rotterdam on this really tiny platform, and it's really windy out, and I'm thinking, oh my God, am I gonna live through this?
Yeah, that's fucking. Yeah, that honestly does not help with like people who don't want to get like a fear of heights and yet get it anyway because of that.
I never had a fear of heights before this, but after this, it's like I think about it, I'm like, oh god, So basically, I had to after I got down back on the ground, I literally. Before I went back, to the area with all the people in it, I literally kissed the ground for a second, just out of sheer joy in that. And none of the others knew about this. None of the others, I didn't tell them about it. I told them oh, did you find the exit? Oh, yeah, I found it okay. But I, for a few minutes, I was absolutely not certain if I would have lived through that, because that is absolutely insane, But yet, and the thing is Rotterdam is a really beautiful place. We saw the cube houses and whatnot. They were cool. We saw an episode at a D&D shop, and then they all played D&D. And since I had never even heard of it before, I was really confused as to what was going on afterwards.
I found out about
watching
D&D
it,
in
what is going
middle
on.
school.
Yeah. I never got into it. I guess it, just never appealed to me, unfortunately, which is weird because I also was a fantasy fan. But getting back off that tangent to this tangent.
It's funny because freaking Vox Machina is D&D, and you.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good show. I am really enjoying that so far. I'm looking forward to talking about that on this podcast someday. So yeah, basically, what happened is that, again, I went through the rest of the tour, fine, with the meetup and that. That was the only one I would go to. I was planning on one for 2015, but then circumstances kind of stopped it. And then, ever since then, it's weird. With a height, it's not so much stuff like being on an airplane or a Ferris wheel, or even an observation deck of a lighthouse. It's like when you actually have to walk up there, when you have to walk on a platform. That's when I sometimes get it, which, yep. But anyway, just about to answer the rest of the question about my experience with the fandom, I started watching in 2011 when they started playing it on TV here randomly. And then I got into the fandom in March of 2012. I pretty much was a brony until I think around season 5. Then I kind of fell off the show for a little while. I think kind of thought, I think I've run its course. Then when My Little Pony the movie came out, I went back full force into it. It was like the fire was reignited, and I'm still a big fan of it. I never attended any conventions or anything like that, and that meetup in Rotterdam was the only one I had. But that was the story about how a brony meetup in Rotterdam caused me to have a fear of heights.
Nice.
So I'm sorry if that seems like a lot for you to get through, Angron, or for you to follow it up. But
it's all good.
Yeah. So what was your experience with the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic / the Brony fandom?
Okay, the Brony fandom, not specifically anything important. However, how I got into MLP is a little interesting. So I know that around 2010 or so, MLP was starting to become a thing. I read in the Game Informer magazine that I saw this article called My Little Brony, which I'm like, Then I started hearing the term brony a little more and more, and I'm like, okay. It's a little weird. I honestly didn't think much of it at the time. Then, however, when I was still in middle school, 7th grade or so, I went over to my cousin's house. And before I went to my cousin's house, my sister was very much into MLP. And I remember seeing this little, I remember seeing this tiny little pamphlet for the characters of MLP. It didn't really look that impressive. Some of the characters looked pretty They looked a little too angular, something out of the 1950s or 60s or something like that. However, one character in particular caught my eye. And that, out of all the characters on that pamphlet, was Princess Celestia. From the moment I saw her, I was immediately interested a little bit. I still didn't think too much of it at the time, but let's just say Celly was easily the first one to ultimately get me a little interested. She basically had my interest. And then a few months or like a year or so later, I went to my cousin's house. We get back to this. So, we were in the place. We were just like doing stuff and whatnot, like occasionally playing games, like checking out Transformers and whatnot. Because at the time, my cousin was very much into Transformers, kind of technically still is. But then, all of a sudden, we keep in mind at the time, my sister was far ahead in like knowing what MLP was than I did. But the moment I saw a few episodes, like I remember like one of them being Sonic Rainboom that had like Celestia in it, and I saw a few others, and I was like, So eventually, at some point, after I ultimately like had nothing much to do, I ultimately got a little curious. So, after those select episodes, I ultimately decided to watch the series from the beginning. And then, since then, I have pretty much been a little hooked.
Nice.
Yeah, it was that kind of experience, which was very much, which honestly, I like. It didn't exactly start out like me being all, Brony, this is not great, blah, blah. But
yeah,
that's not to say, but that's not to say it didn't eventually get to that point, because let's be fair here, we all had that particular. In fact, I actually saw that episode. I think. Wait, no, shit. Never mind. I saw like mostly season 1 episodes, but I will say this.
Yes.
That episode is definitely relatable because I was very much interested at that point, and then I saw it and it had my full attention, and then and then after like a certain episode, I was like, it hit me. I'm a fucking brony.
So that was a lot of people's experiences. You're not alone in that. A lot of people became fans like that. They were like, they were saying, oh, this show's stupid. Let's watch it to, see what it's all about. And then, of course, they end up, learning to like it, which happens to a lot of stuff. But I feel like with Bronyism, it was the first time I feel like that happened with the internet at large.
Yeah. So, yeah. Like a lot of people were starting to come out of the woodwork. And it's like,
Right. No, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, a lot of people, watched it to mock, even like that's how Bronyism came to be. A lot of people on 4chan watched it to mock it and make fun of it, and they ended up loving it so much that it became its own subculture.
Oh, yeah.
It really is something that I feel like Bronyism in general, it could only have happened at the time it did. It was like basically lightning had struck perfectly. That it was all of the planets
and keep in mind, this was like an era where like Gravity Falls came out at the time.
Yeah, before Gravity Falls, the only hit other shows that were on was stuff like Regular Show and Adventure Time, which has definitely primed people for it. But I feel like Friendship is Magic, it came out at the perfect time when social media was just getting big enough to where it could definitely be a viable way for people to get through with it and with YouTube and whatnot. But it wasn't so advanced and so splintered. Of course, we still have really huge fandoms and whatnot today, but I feel like Bronyism is one of those things that it only happened once or twice. So, yeah. So, Stryker, what is your experience with My Little Pony Friendship is Magic?
Unfortunately, I don't have much of experience because I never really watched it growing up. That neither that or actually watching it up until now. But I do have experiences with the fandom, of course, outside of the outside of the actual show. Like first time I ever experienced it was on art sites as well as the different fan art pieces.
Let's be fair.
Yeah, true. I imagine a lot of people got into the show probably through fan art as well.
Yep.
Perhaps.
Yeah. So LuckyEevee, what is your opinion of or experience rather with the Friendship is Magic and the fandom?
I watched one episode with It Was Looking.
Huh.
Sorry, what?
Which episode did you see?
The first Iron Will episode.
Huh.
What was that?
Because I am and still am scared to this day about letting people know.
Huh. There's really no reason to be. I mean, it's not really. I mean, the fandom does have its stigma, like a lot of stuff does, unfortunately. But I feel like there's nothing really wrong with it. Like watching a show that you like watching. Just saying, I am a person. I enjoy watching the show. There's nothing wrong with it, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So, yep. Now it is time for the patent pending Dragoness Scale, and we're going to discuss Princess Ember on this show. I would also throw in Mar, but she really has such a small screen time to where I don't know if we could rate her.
I'm gonna give her a 6 out of 10 regardless.
Yeah. We've done lesser Dragonesses, let's be real. So maybe we'll throw her in on too. But for Ember, I am going to give her I don't say this lightly. Ember, I think, gets a perfect score. Because I feel like, number one, she is the first predominant Dragoness in the Friendship is Magic franchise. There may have been a Dragoness in G1 and G3. I'm not entirely sure.
G1? Who knows?
G1, I'm not sure. But for Ember to be like the first real Dragoness, let's put it this way: she's the first, Dragoness to be an actual character. I feel she really just knocks it out of the park. I think she has a fantastic design. With like. She's stylized, she's streamlined, but yet she's not too. She still retains appeal while still being, draconic. I do like the ideas, like the gem-shaped marks on her body, which is another nice touch. The snout shape, the wings, the horns being turned like that is another good touch. The voice is fantastic, and it would only get better as time went on. And just her personality in general, the way that she learns about friendship in this episode, she goes from being a, pretty standard Dragoness to a character with a lot more depth, and that she even has more depth from the start, that she's tired of all the other dragons and wants to be different from them. It is such a good springboard for her, and I feel like she got a lot better as time went on. When I feel like she had a lot of interaction with the other ponies and whatnot, it really did work out for the best. And I feel like Ember is one of those Dragonesses that she is really the first and so far only predominant Dragoness in My Little Pony history. So her design, her voice, her look, her personality, everything about her, she gets an absolute perfect score from me. So Angron?
Lesser, and okay, quick tangent. I'm looking it up, and apparently there were 4 ponies in this in Gen 1 that actually transformed into dragons. So
I believe those were. I think the dragons might have been male. I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to look it up. That actually is in, I think, a Rescue from Midnight Castle, which is the first My Little Pony animated anything. It's before they had even the own TV show. It was like a made-for-TV special, I think. So that technically is the first My Little Pony animated thing ever. And if I'm wrong and they turn out that they do turn into Dragonesses, we will definitely talk about that sometime in the future, because it'll be interesting going back and talking about the first ever My Little Pony animation ever from the 80s. That'd be interesting. But sorry, go ahead.
In any case, all right. So, Ember, I am going to be a little lesser with Ember, and I am going to give her a set. If I'm being generous, I want to say an 8 out of 10, but let's see here. For this episode in particular, you know what? I'm going to do an 8 out of 10. I am going to say, I will say I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I do admit that Ember does skirt the line between between casual casual apartist sort of and curious. But I don't know. There are other dragons that do it more for me. And while I do like Ember's design, I do like her character here. I think the biggest gripe for me is that she's a little underused, all things considered. Like this here is that really got the ball rolling, but like it's one of those things where it's like it like stops a little ways away. You know what I mean?
No, I definitely understand that. I get it completely. That I feel like again that's one of the criticisms I have here, that she was kind of underused and a little bit underbaked in some of her last appearances. But regardless of that, she really did, I feel, carve a niche out for herself. But I understand completely, where you're coming from with that. She definitely needed a lot more time and appearance for it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, but otherwise, the only other nitpick I have is that while the casual character / slight dragoness slight dragon nature shows here and there, it's not enough for me to really change my score that much. So I'm gonna give her an 8 out of 10.
That's perfectly fair. That's a good score. So yeah, Stryker.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Because I really didn't get much of an idea from her in this episode, but I will say that I will give her an 8 for now.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Because I've seen plenty of fan art of her, and I will say I am a fan of her.
Nice. And yeah, just like a quick question. So, seeing as this was like one of your first episodes of Friendship is Magic in general, just going a little tiny tangent here. What did you think of it as a whole, basically? Just out of curiosity.
It was a lot better than I thought, actually.
Nice.
It was fun.
Yep, glad you liked it. And LuckyEevee, what would you have to give Ember from My Little Pony Friendship is Magic?
I'd say 8 out of 10.
Wow. Any reason?
Yeah, not really.
Okay. All right then. If you have any questions, or if you want to ask us which pony you think should have turned into a dragonesses, you could email us at FieryDiscourse@outlook.com or visit us on Twitter at twitter.com/FieryDiscourse. Next time it's September, so you know what that means. We're going to be talking about the 2001 animated movie Shrek, an all-time classic with an all-time classic dragoness, and it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about this movie too. So, yep. Until next time, thank you guys so much for listening, and take care.
Yep, laters.
Adios.